Some places hold their ghosts close. They don't just sit in photographs or whisper in the corners of your mind. They stay in the walls, in the wood, in the very air you breathe. Abandoned buildings are their own kind of grave. Not for though you might find those too, but for moments, frozen in time. When life leaves, something else moves in, and tonight, we step inside one of those places. This isn't a collection of tales. There's no skipping ahead. There's only one story tonight, a true account from someone who walked through a place that had been silent for years and discovered it wasn't silent at all. Before we begin, make sure you subscribe to Echoes After Midnight and turn on notifications. We bring you the kind of stories that follow you into the dark, the kind you might wish you'd never heard. If you think you're ready, hold tight to your light, and don't fall behind. This is Echoes After Midnight. Story 1, The Tallyman of Briar Hollow. Millie used to think abandoned places were just silence wearing dust, empty rooms, flaking paint, a history you could photograph and leave behind. That was before the mill, before the whispering numbers and the chalk lines that kept moving when no one was watching. Briar Hollow Mill sat a few miles outside a town people only remembered when they missed an exit. If you drove the county road past the soybean fields and the one-lane bridge, you'd see the mill's brick spine rise from the trees like a rusted ship run aground for stories of broken windows and blackened teeth. It had been a textile factory, then a wartime supplier, then a tangle of rumors about a foreman who locked the doors during a fire. That last part never made the papers. Most of the town's history hadn't. I wasn't alone the night I went in. My cousin Mara talked me into it. She runs a channel that films forgotten places, clean edits. No jump scare garbage, lots of moody shots of sunlight through rafters. I usually ran the second camera, while our friend Theo lugged the mic and a coil of rope he insisted on bringing. Everywhere, you're going to like this one, Mara said as we parked beside a stand of trees. Wind scraped at the leaves like an animal in the brush. There's a sub-basement, old machine pits, tunnels to shuttle cotton between buildings. Half the town used to work here, generations back. I bet we'll find lockers with love notes still taped inside. You realize you sound like a realtor for ghosts, Theo said, looping the rope over his shoulder. Just saying. Mara grinned in the glow from her headlamp. Come on, skeptics. Let's go meet our clients. We slipped through a section of chain link peeled up at the base. The fence rattled like it was trying to remember how to whisper. On the other side, the smell changed. Damp brick and something older, stale oil and paper turned to paste by decades of seep. We crossed a blacktop lot cratered with weeds and stepped through a loading bay where a roll-up door had been dragged, half open and left to rust inside. Our lights made cones in the dust. The factory floor was a wide, low sea of pillars. Overhead, steel catwalks stitched from column to column, disappearing into shadows iced with alguano. The wind outside found 100 broken panes and hummed, and in that humming you could almost hear the cadence of machines that weren't there, the thunk of presses, belts skittering over drums, the long exhale of steam. Sound check, Theo said. He tested the directional mic, watched red bars quiver on his recorder, nodded. Ambient hum, wind, some kind of vibration. Mara swung her beam upward. That overpass, she said, though the highway was a mile away. Maybe the river. I felt it too, a faint tremor underfoot, like someone walking on a floor below us. We filmed for an hour. Pillars, conveyor belts, furred with lint. A yellowed safety poster flapping on a wall. 10 finger-10 reasons to be careful. Names were written in chalk at the ends of old workstations. Sandy, Patsy, Gabe half, erased by time. In the break area, a vending machine leaned against a wall like a drunk who had given up. Its glass was gone. Inside, a metal spiral still held a fossilized honey bun. The wrapper collapsed into itself like lungs gone slack. "Look," Mara said. Her light caught a narrow door stenciled with office. She pushed it open with the toe of her boot. Inside, the office smelled like wet cardboard and printer ink. A desk squatted in the corner, drawers yanked out and left on the floor. A ledger lay open on the desktop. Its pages had fused into a block until, halfway through, someone had pried them apart and scratched shaky columns of numbers down the margins. Tally marks climbed the paper in groups of 5, then 5 more, then 5 more. A forest of scratches. No dates, no names. Just counting. Inventory. I said. Mara leaned in until her headlamp made a bright circle that swallowed the page. "Maybe," she frowned, "but it's on top of someone else's writing." Under the tallies, I could just make out rows of typed names and numbers. Worker IDs, shift times, line assignments. Here and there, ink bled up through the new scratches, like old bones through thin skin. "Creepy," Theo said, but he smiled when he said it. "Let's keep moving." We found the stairs to the sub-basement behind a half-collapsed wall of lockers. The stairs were narrow, choked with debris, and our beams showed just enough to remind me what they couldn't show. The deeper we went, the stronger the smell got. Mildew iron. Something like wet coins dot at the bottom. Our lights hit water. The sub-basement had flooded to the depth of my shins. It cut the echo of our footsteps, so the place didn't ring. It swallowed our sounds whole, like a mouth filling with warm metal. The room opened into a grid of machine pits, dark rectangles that drank in light. The water barely rippled, as though it had been taught how to behave by something strict and long gone. "The tunnel mouths should be along the east wall," Mara said. "If the schematics are right." "Schematics?" I asked. She shrugged. "Read it." We waded forward. Rusted rails ran under the water, maybe part of the shuttle system that had moved carts between buildings. Mara scanned the walls. Theo kept checking the recorder, tapping his headphones, rewinding a few seconds, replaying. "What?" I said. "Thought I heard." He paused. "I'll pull it later." We reached the east wall. 3 archways hunched there, mouths at water level. The bricks around them were black with something that wasn't only moisture. Above each arch, a number had been painted in thick white, now flaking. 1, 2, 3. Mara's breath ghosted in the cold. "We're not going in," she said, as if reading my mind. "Just a peek with the boss." She unpacked a coil of line and a tiny camera on the end of a flexible wand. The screen in her palm flickered into life, grainy, green-tinted. She fed the camera into Tunnel 2. The picture jostled a low brick throat slick with algae, the waterline dark and furry. Something pale floated by the lens, a moth, a scrap of paper. It smudged, then slipped past and vanished. "There," Theo said through his headphones. His voice had gone papery. "Hear that?" We all held still, over the sound of our own breathing, and the water's slight swash, something else. Not a voice exactly, a rhythm. Tick, tick, tick. No, not ticks. It was the sound of something tapping damp brick in sets of 5. 4 soft, 1 harder. 4 soft, 1 harder. Counted out like days scratched on a cell wall. Mara slowly withdrew the camera, The tapping faded, then returned from somewhere else. I couldn't tell which tunnel. My head turned, trying to aim my ears, and the water moved, and the sound slid. "Away, you getting this?" Mara whispered. Theo nodded. "Yeah." The archways stared back. The numbers above them flaked and peeled like scabs. "I don't like it," I said. "It came out too fast. Let's go upstairs." Mara looked at me. For a second, I thought she would argue she hates leaving a location before she's mapped it. But she nodded. "Okay," she said. "We still have the west wing." We sloshed back toward the stairs. As we reached the first row of pits, something changed. The water at our ankles went very still, as if it had been listening and decided to stop pretending to be natural. A ripple rolled toward us, not created by our movement, but by something else beyond the pillars, a slow, deliberate pulse, like a breath. From somewhere in the black grid of pits, the tapping resumed. This time, it didn't echo. It came from one place, like a fingertip on wood. Tick, 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 thunk, dot. We stopped. Our lights swam on the water, threw crazed stripes up the walls. "Please tell me that's a pipe," Thea whispered. "It's a pipe," Mara said automatically. Her voice had gone to tones higher. The tapping stopped, and for a second I felt relief so sudden it made me lightheaded. Then it started again, slower, from nearer. Dot, tick, 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 thunk. "I'm done," I said. I didn't care if it went on the video, Mara. Now, we backed toward the stairs without turning our backs on the archers. The water lipped at my boots like a stray animal, nosing my shins. Theo kept the recorder up at his chest, as if it could block a bullet. Mara watched the archways. Her breath fogged and drifted. When we reached the bottom step, the tapping stopped. Again, the silence swelled until the room felt too tight for the three of us. I didn't realize I'd been holding my breath until my lungs burned. Then, in the ledges of the dark, "This is the only way I can say it," I felt something count us. Not like a mind speaking, more like the way a room changes when someone else stands in the doorway. The air shifted its weight. The silence took note. 1, 2, 3, go. Mara said, teeth chattering. Go, we climbed. The beam of my headlamp bounced and jittered. Halfway up, a sound rose behind us that wasn't tapping. It was breath dry, like a man who'd been counting too long without water. It came from the archways, from the pits, from under the staircase itself, as if it lived in the cavity of the concrete. We didn't run. Running would have meant looking away. We moved as fast as we could without breaking the line of our lights from the sub-dash basement. At the top, we shoved through the locker wall and into the main floor's broader dark. The wind and the broken windows sounded almost friendly after the water's hush. We didn't speak until we were all the way into the loading bay, where the highway hum felt like a human noise. Okay, Theo said. He bent with his hands on his knees, laughing breathlessly in a way that wasn't happy. Okay, that was what was that? Mara swallowed. A pipe, she said defensively, but no one believed it. We left the mill to the trees and the hums and the ghosts we no longer wanted to meet. In the car, Theo rewound the recorder, scrubbed the timeline with a finger, played back the sub-basement. The tapping had become louder on the device, like the recorder remembered better than we did. At one point, over the taps, a whisper ran, high and threadbare. 2, 3, 4, 5. Turn it off, I said. We went home, did what we always do, showered too hot, ate too much bread, tried not to replay the dark places when we closed our eyes. Mara texted me an hour after midnight. You up? I didn't have the heart to say no. She sent a still frame from her borescoper, single blurred white shape in the tunnel water. It's nothing, she wrote. Probably lint. Or a reflection. Then, after a minute, we got good footage. We can cut around the weird stuff. Didn't reply. I lay awake and listened to the radiator tick cooling down at the end of the bed. 4 soft, 1 harder. I told myself I was making patterns where none existed. The brain wants stories. It will knit anything into a meaning. 2 days later, Mara texted again. She was in the middle of the edit. She wanted me to swing by to pick selects. When I got there, she had divided the footage into neat bins: exteriors, factory floor, office, sub-basement. She looked tired, hair in a knot, eyes rimmed like she'd been crying or hadn't slept. Hey, I said gently. You okay? She nodded too fast. Just frustrated. I keep hearing the counting. Even when I scrub through the office clips, it bleeds in. Watch. She played the office scene. Dust, desk, the ledger with the barmark forest. No sound except our voices, our small jokes to keep from feeling stupid. Underneath, faint but steady, the tapping kept time. For soft, 1 hard. For soft, 1 hard. Maybe it's an artifact, I said. The recorder glitching. Theo came. By after work, he listened. He took the recorder and ran a pass through noise reduction software, then a spectral analyzer. He sat back in the spinny chair, rubbed his jaw. What? Mara asked. She had that brittle voice you get when you already know you won't like the answer. It's not an artifact, Theo said. It's not in the white noise floor. It's above it, with harmonics. Whatever it is, it's in the room. Everywhere. In the room, that night, while Mara rendered a draft, I made tea and idled in my messages. An old man from the town had DM'd the channel a week earlier. He had seen a teaser Mara posted of the mill's exterior, recognized the building, and sent a long paragraph about his dad. I'd ignored it. Fans liked to attach personal ghosts to our content. Now I opened it. My father worked 3rd shift. The message began. They called the foreman down there the tallyman. He'd walk with a chalk stub and mark your post if you took too long in the bathroom. 5 minutes was a mark. 5 marks and you lost the shift. He kept books on everyone. When they came in, how long their hands were idle. During the winter, the belts would squeal and he'd blame the workers. Folks say he still counts. I scrolled. The old man had attached a photo. 4 men in coveralls stood shoulder to shoulder with grim mouths. Behind them, the mill's brick shoulder sloped under a sky like a steel sheet. A 5th man stood slightly apart, hands behind his back. His shirt looked white in the black and white. His tie cut a dark line down his chest. He watched the camera with a face too smooth to be anyone's father. In the photo, on the wall behind him, chalk marks climbed like ivy. Hey, Mara called from the edit bay. Come see this. I joined her. The sub-basement footage ran on. The screen, our lights jittered on the water. The archways hunched. As the tapping rose and fell, a shape moved in the black of tunnel too. Not a person, not an animal. A pause in the darkness, like a gap wearing the room around it. The lens drifted closer, shivering, and just before Mara pulled it out, something slid across the opening. I thought it was a hand, but the proportions were wrong. The fingers were too long or the knuckles were too many. It left a thin track. On the brick, like chalk, dragged underwater. Pause, Theo whispered. He wasn't religious, but he sounded like he was about to pray. We paused. The frame went blocky. Up close, everything turned into squares, the way fear does when you examine it. We can still cut around it, Mara said. She didn't sound convinced. We didn't have to make the decision that night. The mill made it for us. At 3 in the morning, my phone buzzed. "Theo, you awake?" Before I could answer, Mara called. When I picked up, she wasn't speaking. She was breathing too fast. I could hear a tap-tap in the background, fast as a heartbeat. For one stupid instant, I thought she'd left the footage running. "Mara," I said, "where are you?" She exhaled a laugh that wasn't a laugh. "Home," she said. Listen." She held the phone out. The tapping didn't come from a speaker. It came from the room, from walls and floors. And under it, faint, a dry voice that could have been wind in a duct or the end of someone's breath. 1, 2, 3, 4. "The ledger," Mara said, back on the line. "I went to return it. I took it, okay. I know I shouldn't have. I thought we could get a close-up for the intro. But the pages," she broke off. Papers rustled. She swallowed. "They're not the same," she whispered. "I swear I didn't do this. The tallies are different. There are more of them, and there's a name. Whose?" Silence. Then, softly, "Mine. I put on shoes without tying them. I didn't bother with socks." The drive to Mara's apartment took 9 minutes in the day and 5 at night if you didn't stop at the light where the road sloped down into the river trees. I ran both lights. Her door was unlocked. I found her in the living room, curled on the couch with the ledger open on the coffee table. She looked smaller than usual, like someone had let air out of her. The pages of the book shone the way damp things shine. Lines of 5 marched down the left side, then the right, then crossed the middle, dodging the old printed names and columns. In one place, the tallies kinked to avoid a coffee ring, then straightened and continued as if annoyed with themselves. In the margin, a name had been written in a hand so thin it might have been stitched. Mara, each letter crossed into itself like a knot. "How many?" she asked without looking up. I swallowed. "It doesn't how many, Gabe." I counted. My eyes kept sliding off the marks. Numbers mean things. They tie to your heart. Slow it, speed it. I counted anyway, knowing I shouldn't. When I reached the end, I felt something settle on my shoulders, as precise as a shirt being fitted. 495, I said. I didn't know why, I whispered. Mara's mouth twitched. 5 more, she said, almost conversationally. Always 5 more. Somewhere in the building, a neighbor dropped something heavy. It landed with a thud that sounded too much like the end of a count. Theo arrived with the rope on his shoulder, because of course he did. We didn't talk long. There wasn't much to say that would be honest and not make things worse. We drove back to the mill with the ledger in a tote bag like a sick thing. We were returning to the woods. Dawn was a rumor at the horizon. Ahead of us, the mill looked the way it always had, like a burnt book too thick to throw away. We went straight to the office. The ledger belonged on the desk, so we put it there. The air in the room tasted like copper. The walls had changed. Where there had been a few chalk marks next to the safety poster, the tally lines had multiplied. They ran up from the floor like reeds in a drained lake, then crooked onto the ceiling. The tips of the lines had been rubbed by hands that lingered. Too long, it's a prank, Theo said, but he couldn't get the shape of the word right. I set the ledger down. The tapping stopped. The room exhaled a sound like a dog settling at your feet. We didn't wait to see if it would resume. We made it all the way to the loading bay before the hum from the broken windows changed. Not louder, not closer, just focused, the way a face focuses when it recognizes you. We stepped out into morning that had finally found its colors. Theo's breath steamed. He bent to adjust the rope, maybe just to do something with his hands. Mara froze. Her gaze had found the concrete ledge beside the bay door. There, written in a rasping hand with chalk that must have been a shard of brick, lay a list of 3 names: Gabe, Theo, Mara. Next to each, a number, not tallies, totals. Mine, 1. Theo's, 1. Mara's, 495. It's not how many times he's counted, Mara said quietly. Her face had gone the color of milk in a sink. It's how many left. We didn't argue. There are thoughts you let into your mouth that you must never let into your lungs. We drove to a church on the edge of town that still left its doors open during the day. We sat in the back and listened to the quiet, pretending to be kind. When we came out, the sun was up and the day had chosen to be normal. We didn't go back to the mill. We didn't post the video. We never spoke the tallyman's name on the channel. Weeks later, when Theo cut a smaller film out of unrelated footage, he found the tapping under an exterior shot of an entirely different building. Like a song you can't stop hearing because you know the words now. He deleted the project. He deleted 3 more. He asked if we wanted the rope. We told him to keep it. Mara moved apartments. 6 months passed, then 12. The counting never happened at my place again. It happened at hers sometimes, she said, when the wind got into the vents the right way. She learned the trick of sleeping with the fan and the radio both on, so that the air and the voices braided over the sound and made it mostly harmless. She is still on 495. She keeps a piece of chalk in her pocket, ritual or warning, I'm not sure. Once, when we walked through the grocery store, she reached out and very gently corrected a crooked tally someone had scrawled on a clearance sign. Her fingers left chalk on her jeans. She didn't notice. People ask me why we don't do abandoned places anymore. I tell them we got tired of asbestos and boarded stairs. That's true, if they insist, if they lean in the way people do when they want to borrow your fear for a while, I say. We learned that some buildings aren't empty, not the way you mean. They aren't even haunted. That implies a thing that was alive once and left. Some places are still working. They make something you can't ship. They don't need electricity. They run on attention. They run on time. And if you get close enough to see the product, it will look back at you, and it will count. Here's what I know. After Briar Hollow Mill, some histories don't end. They continue in smaller ledgers, in softer chalk, in breaths that never add up to a scream. When the wind moves just right, and you hear a rhythm in it that isn't wind, don't say anything aloud. Don't count with it. Don't help it keep track. And if you ever find yourself in a room where there are marks on the walls that climb and divide, marks that look like days in a solitary cell, leave the numbers alone. They aren't for you. They are for someone who doesn't forget, who remembers you as a column and a sum. Put down what's in your hand. Step away without turning your back. Because sometimes the thing that drifts under the surface isn't a ghost or a rumor, but a habit. Sometimes the silence is only a ledger waiting to fill itself. And if you hold still too long in certain rooms, you will feel the air sort you from the rest, pencil poised. Ready to begin the work it never stopped doing. 1, it will say 2, 3, 4. And then, still patient after all these years, 5. You can walk out of the building. You can leave the dust, the smell, the sound of footsteps behind you, but some part of you stays. The air will feel different for a while, heavier, like the walls are still breathing in time with you. Your dreams might change too. You'll hear echoes of the sounds you tried to forget. You'll see shadows in places you thought were safe. That's the thing about encounters like this. They don't end when you leave. They end when the place lets you go. And sometimes, it never does. If tonight's story made you think twice about stepping into the dark, then it's done its job. But remember, someone else once stood where you're standing now. They didn't think they'd be next either. This has been Echoes After Midnight. If you want more stories like this, more doors you should never open, more voices you should never answer, subscribe and join us again. We'll keep the light on, just long enough for you to find the dark.